Hello and welcome back to the channel. The subject of reparations is on the table again. Reparations. And the California Secretary of State made a statement. She said that reparations should be limited to descendants of black slaves. Now, I think it's a shame that this even has to be highlighted in this way, but she was very, very clear on why she made such a statement, that reparations should be limited to descendants of black slaves. Anyway, listen to this short report and I will be right back.
California's Secretary of State said Thursday that reparations for African Americans should be limited to people whose forebears were kidnapped from their homeland, stripped of their ancestry, and left with nothing after generations of forced labor. Shirley Weber, the daughter and granddaughter of sharecroppers, who authored legislation creating the first-in-the-nation task force to study reparations, said while black immigrants have suffered from racism in the U.S., they always had a country to return to. Slavery was more than a physical condition, she said, and its psychological impact stunted people's ability to strive beyond survival. The fear my grandfather felt, I remember as a child, was palpable, and it crippled him and his family's ability to dream beyond the cotton fields, Weber said at Thursday's meeting of the task force to study and develop reparations for African Americans. The meeting continues Friday. She said that Barack Obama likely never would have dreamed of becoming president had he descended from enslaved people. Obama, the country's first black president, had a white mother and a black father from Kenya who came to the U.S. to study. Obama, she said, did not have limitations and fears drilled in his psyche, and thus aspired to become the President of the United States. The 9-member task force, which started meeting in July, is on a 2-year timeline to address the harms of slavery, especially given inaction at the federal level. Critics have said that California did not have slaves as in other states, and that it shouldn't have to address the issue or pay for it. But expert testimony being heard by the task force overwhelmingly points to large racial disparities in wealth, health, and education in California. African Americans make up just 6% of California's population, yet were 30% of an estimated 250,000 people experiencing homelessness who sought help in 2020. Their communities have been razed in the name of redevelopment, and black people remain overrepresented in jails. In September, Gavin Newsom signed legislation returning prime beachfront property to descendants of a black couple who had the land taken away by eminent domain. Weber's great-grandfather was born into slavery, and her family fled Arkansas in summer 1951, running from the Ku Klux Klan in the dead of night, she said. She said she would not have written the legislation if she had known the pool of recipients would be expanded, leaving mere pennies for the descendants of slaves.
Okay, so this subject of reparations is a very touchy subject because we know that this country hasn't always been fair when it decides things. Not just this country, but around the world as well. They're not always fair when they decide things. And of course, when you talk about reparations, look at the current economic situation the whole world is in, even the U.S. It's like, what is the likelihood that they're going to even give reparations to anyone? There's always been this talk about, we'll give reparations in the form of a paid education. I have to laugh at that. One. Nothing that, because education is not what it's all cracked up to be, you see, and that doesn't guarantee you anything, and that certainly does not pay for the wrongs that have been done. Now, whenever you talk about reparations for black people, folk get upset. Despite the fact that slave owners, when they lost their slaves, they got reparations because the government felt sorry for them because they no longer had free labor, right? The reason why this woman feels the need to make the distinction that reparations should be limited to descendants of black slaves is because you can't have those who are like Barack Obama, whose mother is a European, whose father is an African. You can't have people like that taking advantage of reparations because they did not go through what we went through during our ancestors, should I say, for those who like to be smart and say, well, I never owned slaves and you never picked cotton, so whatever. We are always seeing descendants of this, that, and the third getting reparations, but Everyone wants to throw up all of these stone walls when it comes to so-called black descendants of slaves. And the fact that she has to make the distinction, she already knows that they will say, you know what, we are going to pay out some reparations, but we're going to throw this one in the pot, that group in the pot, that group in the pot. There was even talk of having reparations for gays. And I said to myself, for what? For what? And so she's making this distinction because everyone wants to mix things up when it comes to doing anything for blacks, right? But guess what? This is to be expected because there is this perpetual hatred in the hearts of people for the so-called black race. And it's not going anywhere anytime soon. It's there. It's been there for thousands of years. So what makes you think that being in the 20s, the 2020s, that something's going to change? That same perpetual hatred is going to remain there. Every excuse imaginable is going to be thrown at us as it relates to reparations. There's going to be always the highlighting of black crime statistics when there are other groups who actually top black crime statistics. Some of y'all might not believe that because of what the news shows all of the time. Of course, they're not going to show everything that happens in the white community because that's not their goal. Their goal is not to show everything equally. They're not going to show you that there are drug users in the white community and that there are husbands that abuse their wives and children. They're not going to do all of that because there is an agenda to not only destroy black people, but to destroy their image as well. Because it was all prophesied. It is what it is. So I understand her wanting to make the distinction because black people, our ancestors, they endured a whole lot. And there were a lot of promises made that have never been kept. But guess what? The same was done with the Native Americans. There were treaties made that were broken. And so if anyone alive today think that they are going to hold to any word of what was promised, don't hold your breath. Okay? Look at all of the treaties broken with the natives that were here before anyone got here. They weren't just removed from their lands, they were slaughtered, and the land was taken by force. And so you think the descendants feel bad for all of that and want to give stuff back to people they've taken it from? I don't think so. They don't, no way. Not to mention, like I said, the economy is in the tank right now. Where are they going to get this money from? And by the time they divvy it out, is it going to be worth anything? So you have to look at all of that stuff. Can you imagine paying out reparations 2 or 3 days before the bottom falls out of the financial markets? Or more specifically, before the bottom falls out of the US dollar. Can you imagine if we were all given X amount of dollars and then days later they say, you know what, we no longer accept the US dollar. It's worth nothing. I'm done with this video. Reparations always on the table. Everybody's always talking and moving their lips, but nothing has happened yet. In the comment section below, remember to keep it tight and keep it right, but until next time. We hope you liked today's topic. Please leave your comments below. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, share it like this video, and with that, we're out. Be sure to ring the bell to be notified of new uploads on this channel, and also comment, share, like, and subscribe.